Howdy everybody, this is Roaming Prepper and I hope everyone's doing well. I'm your host Pete, and as always I'm going to bring your Saturday Sitrep with the agglomeration of information that I get from various sources. All of the information should be public release, at least that's what it says. In any case, I'll be right back and let's talk about what's going on in the world. Hang on for a second. Welcome back, everybody. So this Saturday sit rep may be not as long as some of the others. Are a lot of things still going on, and it's been interesting. A lot of instability in some of the smaller economies, which we've already been talking about. So I'm going to start alphabetically, going with Africa. So Angola's president and ruling party look like they're going to win re-election. It doesn't sound like, but they've had a 47-year rule. This is where it's scary when you have one party, like socialists want, one party. That scares me because truthfully, that's when people really get corrupt, because who are they competing against, right? Then it becomes a question of which one is the most ruthless, who will become the president or the leader. In any case, 47 years, one party's been in office. I don't think that's good in any country, so not bueno. Ethiopia is executing airstrikes on a separatist group that may be affiliated with Al-Shabaab. Somalia also battling Al-Shabaab after targets were hit in Mogadishu. They've blamed this Al-Qaeda affiliate with the attacks. And so Somalia, Ethiopia, there are a lot of countries fighting with this organization. In Zimbabwe, and here's something I'm afraid we may at some point see, we actually saw it in 2020, Zimbabwe, 4 journalists attacked as political violence escalates. We saw this happen, I believe it was Andy Ngo. Also, somebody went after, threw things at Ben Shapiro. You see people attacking reporters. They actually followed a local Fox News crew. They weren't even like Fox, like, you know, Sean Hannity Fox. It was like the local little Fox station with like 10 people in it. And they followed the reporter during the riots and the cameraman throwing things at them. They had to go into a fire station to get away. And this is the reason I bring this up. In Zimbabwe, it doesn't affect us out here in the West that much, but it's important to understand that these are the symptoms of systemic societal collapse. So pay attention to that kind of stuff here at home. China. So U.S. suspends Chinese airline flights over COVID-19 dispute. This is Associated Press. The U.S. government is suspending 26 flights in a dispute over antivirus controls after Beijing suspended flights by American carrier because China has a zero COVID policy. Like, anyone gets COVID in a town shut down, which most other countries are not doing. Also Solomon Islands. Now remember, I'd mentioned in a past video, the Solomon Islands have been aligning themselves with China quite a bit. China is right now trying to fund a deep sea port and an airbase in the Solomon Islands, which would give them reach to Australia, to Sydney, to Melbourne, to Canberra. Like, that's a very strategic move. A U.S. ship was unable to get Solomon Island permission to dock. It was a U.S. Coast Guard vessel was seeking to refuel on its way from the U.S. to Guam, and mind you, Coast Guard, and Solomon Islands refused to respond or give them permission to dock. So they had to redirect and wound up going to Australia. It said, and this is from The Guardian, Honiara, which I guess is the capital, did not respond to requests for Coast Guard vessels to refuel amid tensions over their security pact with China. So, Vietnam just stuck a journalist in jail for 9 years. who had been sentenced to 9 years in prison on charges of propaganda against the state. Here we go again, the instability, they start throwing journalists in jail. A lot of these journalists get full of themselves here in the US in particular, and they're like, oh, well, First Amendment, until they get thrown in jail for something. Technically in Vietnam, they can have free press, but you see how free this guy's going to be. Anyway, moving to Europe. The Netherlands, this is Reuters. Dutch railway workers will go on strike for higher pay over soaring costs. So the inflationary effect is hurting everyone at this point, guys. It's hurting everyone. Russia, Ukraine, the International Atomic Energy Agency mission seeks to visit the Zaporizhzhia plant amid concerns. Now, if you're not familiar with it, it is the largest nuclear plant in Europe. Sadly, in Ukraine, 100 miles or so from Chernobyl, and Russia and Ukraine are fighting around it, and there's been damage to it, which Ukraine blames Russia for, Russia blames Ukraine for, so everyone's pointing at everyone else, and it was temporarily knocked offline, and more shelling was reported overnight. They're afraid they're going to create a atomic incident that's going to contaminate that section of Europe. I don't know that. Now the UN is trying to negotiate making like a DMZ and putting UN peacekeepers there in like a 10-mile radius and say, okay, this area is now UN, you all fight somewhere else before you kill everyone and contaminate. And I don't know why Russia would want to do that, because that's going to, the contamination will go into Russia as well as to Europe. So, yeah, not a good situation, and it's stupid. But, I'm just the guy in Texas pointing out that they're stupid. They're not going to listen to us. Turkey dismisses concerns over a U.S. sanctions warning. This is Yahoo News. The U.S. Treasury's warning to Turkey that its companies risk being sanctioned if they did business with Russia was meaningless. This is a NATO member who's doing business with Russia on the side. Again, another country that had had one party in power for an extended period of time with no checks and balances. So those people who want to get rid of the Electoral College or get rid of the checks and balances and just be majority only, it's stupid, because this is what happens every single time. Read your history books. Anyway, United Kingdom, London petrol station damaged by anti-oil protesters. Now we have people trying to go to green energy, and their solution is to burn down oil and gas facilities, because that won't contaminate the air. Anyway, this is also Yahoo News. Police have made a number of arrests after protesters damaged petrol stations in London. That's a gas station for you guys here in Canada and the US. The Met said several petrol stations were targeted on Friday, causing disruption and damaging pumps. Yeah. So that's frustrating. You may start seeing that here. It makes no sense to me. You want to save the environment, so I'm going to burn down apartment complexes and I'm going to burn oil and gas and destroy it. There's something very wrong with some people, just my opinion. There's a way to get green energy, and I get the ESG thing, but some of this shit is just stupid. Excuse my French. Anyway, Iraq. Going to Middle East now. Iraq. Explosives detonate in Baghdad, targeting Australian diplomats. There were explosions near the Baghdad Green Zone as an Australian diplomatic convoy made its way into the area. Still having some issues there. And Syria, Iran-U.S. skirmishes highlight rivalry in eastern Syria. This is also Reuters. Amman, Jordan reports that deadly skirmishes have been on the rise in the recent days between U.S. forces and Iranian-aligned militias. Keep in mind that the Russian Wagner Group, which is kind of like their Blackwater-type military contractor company, are also in the country. So once again, you have another situation similar to the Ukraine, where you have NATO troops mixing it up with third parties, and Russian troops and Chinese troops are also in the region. I mentioned on my previous Sitrep that China is very interested in getting bases in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So you're starting to see that influence push toward the West. That just increases the chances of danger. There are other ways to do this, but apparently all the countries are stupid and everyone wants to pick a fight. So it's a great way to distract your people from the fact that they can't afford bread by going into a war with someone. Just my take. South and Central Asia, India restricts wheat flour exports to ease local record pricing. This is another thing we're going to be seeing as crops get affected either by flooding or extreme heat. You're going to get countries are going to take care of their own. India is taking a protective measure and saying we're not going to export wheat, but now places in Africa and Africa and Asia and Southeast Pacific are going to start suffering because of it. They're trying to alleviate themselves. Then Pakistan, in the meantime, has just been hit by a historic rain that is affecting 33 million people in the country. So again, we're starting to see the food countries are starting to back off exporting food. They're like, hold on a second, I got to take care of feed mine first. You're seeing politicians and journalists getting thrown in jail on kind of iffy charges. Argentina, the president is accused of threatening a prosecutor. President Alberto Fernandez was engulfed in controversy Thursday. This is AP News. After saying he hoped the prosecutor leading a corruption trial against Vice President Cristina de Kirchner does not kill himself like he claims another prosecutor did. So I guess the prosecutor got Clinton. I don't understand the context of this, but apparently the other prosecutor abruptly committed suicide while they were trying to investigate corrupt people. Somebody hung themselves in prison too, but we won't talk about that because it offends the gods of the internet. Okay, Mexico. Relatives say reject Mexico's 6 to 11 month plan to find trapped miners. Family members of 10 miners who have been trapped in a flooded coal mine said they rejected a plan for rescue lasting 6 to 11 months. I didn't even know about that. That's unfortunate, not really relevant to us. But keep in mind, as demand for fuels and product grow, you're going to watch companies taking more risky actions to get the product they need to put it on the market. That can expose workers to danger. I don't know if that's the case here, but that's kind of unfortunate. And Venezuela, another one. And here comes our friend the dragon from the east. Chinese defense firm has taken over lifting Venezuelan oil for debt offset. This is Reuters news. China has entrusted a defense-focused state firm to ship millions of barrels of Venezuelan oil despite U.S. sanctions, part of a deal to offset Caracas' billions of dollars of debt to Beijing. Now, I will be talking on other videos, and I believe I've already talked about Beijing using leverage, financial leverage, debt. They'll fund countries' infrastructure or docks or roads, whatever the hell it is they need. But the debt is set up in such a way that the country can't pay off. So now they're indebted to China. So to get out of the debt, they have to make special deals. And here you have a Chinese defense firm coordinating Western Hemisphere oil to go to them because the country in question is in severe debt. Keep in mind, Venezuela is a communist socialist country. There is no difference between the two, in my opinion. There's a social democracy and there's socialism, and they are not the same. And these guys are very much not, they're very much under China's thumb. China's playing a very interesting long game. And you notice how many times China has come up in this Sitrep. Just throwing it out there. In any case, then there's a bunch of other announcements about Taiwan's tension in the private sector, how it affects us. I will one day print one of those out, and we can kind of walk through what companies are trying to do to navigate this, including my own. But folks, interesting stuff this week. A lot of those little subtle instabilities that we all know may come home. Journalists getting thrown in jail, politicians making threats to prosecutors. And by the way, I'm not blaming any party. I think all the parties, all the political parties in the world are full of it. But when you drink red or blue or green or orange Kool-Aid, and that's the only Kool-Aid you drink, guess what? You don't know what, you get blinded by the Kool-Aid, so to say. So you guys kind of get the analogy. It was a terrible one, but I guess you get it. We're going to start seeing this. We've already seen a lot of street crime uptick. Same thing happened in Venezuela. We're already seeing journalists. We've seen journalists get attacked in the street. I'm waiting for a point in time they're going to start trying to throw American and Canadian journalists in jail. I believe in Canada they threw a few in jail for a few nights because of the trucker convoy thing. I know they've grabbed a few here in the States, but it's not usually acceptable to do that. And nobody wants to tread there. But as things get difficult, you're going to watch things happen. Folks, that's it. So how does this affect us? Watch for indicators. That's your takeaway this week. Watch for indicators. You start seeing journalists getting thrown in jail. And not that the politicians fight with journalists. That's what they should be doing, right? The journalists, if they're doing their job, are going after the politicians to keep them honest. Look for people getting thrown in jail for the wrong reasons. Look for companies endangering their employees because they're trying to get product to market and they're doing it in an unsafe way, especially in countries outside of the U.S., more the developing nations. Watch for nations continue to do what India did and back off exports. These are all signs that things are getting very tight, things are getting difficult, and it's now no longer regional. It is very much international, and nations are basically trying to take care of their own. So folks, until next time, God bless, Godspeed. I will see all of you on the next video. Take care.